Hey everyone, welcome back to Pop Workshop. In today's video, I'm adding the extension kit to my XTool D1 laser. I'm also adding the Honeycomb grid that is of equal size. It is a fantastic tool to be able to increase your ability to produce a lot of different items. If you're doing this for a business, that is great. You can double the capacity and cut down all the wasted time doing your repeated setups. And if you'd like to do large projects, this is the laser that you need with this extension kit. I want to start out and explain to you the size and just the capability of the Honeycomb bed, and then we're going to show you exactly how to put this extension kit on your XTool D1 laser. Now, of course, you get the plate that will go underneath it, and I'll pull this film off in a few minutes. So that will protect your workbench underneath. You also have these hold down pins, and what's really nice about these is they are magnetic. So they will drop in and snap right into place. I like that. You have this little tab that you can raise up to be able to pull them out, and then you can place it wherever you need to hold down the material. So to be able to hold a piece of material down with this magnetic, I can just raise up the tab, then I can place these anywhere that I wish. And that just snaps right in place, and I can push this pin down. Now this actually got bent a little bit, but it's still not going to cause a problem. I can probably work with this a little bit and get it adjusted and get that bend out of it. But for now, it'll still work just fine. What I like is this will hold the material down to the honeycomb, and that's nice. And they're low profile, so it's not going to get in the way of the laser. So how big is this honeycomb? So as far as the size of this honeycomb, this is going to be the 50 centimeters by the 100 centimeters. And if you want that in inches, you're looking at roughly 39 3/8 by 19 5/8. Now also in the package, you have these little rubber corners. Now these corners just slip right onto the end, and they go down to bottom, just like this. To be able to hold those in place, you have the little foam stickers right here that will be able to go on the inside and stick this into place. Now with this extension kit, you also get the longer rails. And we'll need to put these onto the laser here in just a moment. So we have the left and right rails. And you also have a box that will have all the materials that you need in here. There's your new cables. We have the new belts. Of course, we have zip ties. And we have various screws and clamps that we'll need along with this to be able to secure the cables. So that's the items that we're going to need to be able to put this extension together. In the kit with this XTool extension, you had the two sets of cables. You only need one set. Depending on the model that you have, it's going to determine which cable that you use. On one of the control boards, you have this with the 2 connectors. And on the other one, you have a connector with the 3. The yellow cord is extra. So you're going to have to determine which one that you need. And the one that you don't, just store it. Who knows, you may need it in the future for something else, for another project. Now the first step is to remove the laser head, and we're going to remove all of the cables and cut all the cable ties. Of course, we're reusing the gold gantry and the front and the back rails also. Now I've disconnected the 2 cables here, the stepper motor and this other smaller pin, and I'm going to cut the cable ties that will release the cable. And please be very careful when you're cutting these ties. You don't want to damage the wires. And I also have a cable tie right there and another one down here that leads over to the control board itself. And underneath I have another cable tie right there, and I'll cut this one. Now I have the cable completely loose. And all I need to do is remove them from the control board itself. Now, using a 2.5 millimeter Allen wrench, I'm going to remove all of these screws. Now, the screws that I'm removing right now actually hold the rails in place. This screw and this screw right here controls the tension on the belt. This is what will make the belt tighter or looser, and this is the set screw that actually locks it in place once you have it done. So I'm going to remove this screw, and this is a round top type button screw as compared to the others being the flat head. Now I'll remove this one, and that will release the belts. So now you can see this little bracket that holds the belt, and this screw was holding that in place. So this now will come loose, but we're going to do the same thing to the other side. I want to show you from a different perspective when I take out this screw that's actually holding the tension on the belt. You can see that this little bracket will come loose. I've already removed the screw that holds the tension, and so that is now free to be able to release the belt. And this end now will just slip off. Now we're reusing this end panel, so I'm just going to set that aside for a moment. Now there's a very small set screw right here that we'll need to loosen. Then we'll be able to push this pin out. And that will release the belt. And we'll keep these parts together, because we'll put the new belt on in just a moment. Now it's time to release the front part and remove the rails. Okay, now I'll release the other side, and then we can work on the shaft that works across. It's time to remove this shaft. It already came out over here, but I need to release this right here. Now that is out. Now the stepper motor has these 4 screws right there, and this is a 2 millimeter Allen wrench. And you want to be real careful not to lose these spacers. And the last step is to remove all of these little brackets. Now these brackets control the limit switches, and they need to be just transferred over to the long rails. Once that is done, then it's time to start putting everything back together. And this is the new belt that's going to go onto this side. And now I can set the short rails, the left and right side, out of the way and just work with the long extended rails. Now, one of the things that I really want to point out to you, when it comes time to putting this gantry back on, there really is an easy way and a hard way. The easiest way is to remove this end cap with the wheels and this belt assembly. And I'll put that on first and then put the gantry back on. That's going to be a much easier way to do it. Now with this end cap removed, it's much easier to be able to remove this belt, because now you can actually work with it and slip it out. We'll set the belt aside, and now we'll put this actually onto the extension rails. Now this is an excellent opportunity to be able to clean the wheels and get everything looking brand new again. So take this opportunity to clean everything while you have it apart, because you can see all the debris that will come off of these wheels. It only takes a moment to be able to do, and I think that you're going to be real happy with doing that. So now it's time to put the new belt right back into this slot. I'll put this belt right onto this little slot. I'll have it go right down inside of here so it's not twisted, and then just slip it on. And then at this point, we'll take this piece, we'll slip this out, and we'll put the belt on this sprocket. And we'll put the pin back in. Then we'll take and tighten this set screw. Okay. We'll set that right there for the moment, and we'll do the same thing to the other side. And I'll slide that right on to that little slot. We'll flip it over. I know this is a little bit repetitive, but this is very important to be able to get right. You also want to make sure that the belts are not twisted, because if you do, you're going to have to do this yet another time to untwist the belts. And then we'll take this, push this pin out, put the little pulley in it, and slip it back in. And then, of course, tighten that little set screw. Now at this point, once this set screw is tightened, I want to go ahead and secure the whole little bracket, because I don't want it just sliding around, and I don't want the belts to twist. And the easiest way is to get that little button head screw and put it in. Now this is not tensioning the belt. The belts are still loose. I have to attach the stepper motor with the belt at the same time at the other end. And we'll just slip that right over on top of it. Just like that. I'm going to stand this up. By standing this up on the edge and having all 4 screws in along with the spacers, it's going to make it a lot easier to attach the stepper motor. Now it's real important to double check to make sure that this belt is not twisted. And then with this rail standing on its edge, it's fairly easy to be able to attach the stepper motor. And keep in mind, these belts are still loose. If you tightened the other end with that tension, with the other assembly, you're going to have a problem. You're going to have to loosen it. This belt must be loose to be able to attach the stepper motor. Once this is attached, then we can tentatively tighten the belts itself. Now here's a look at the completed rail. The stepper motor's in place. The belt's on. We made sure that it wasn't twisted. Now I can take this assembly and just stretch the belt just a little bit. This is not the final tension. With this assembly now completed, we can attach it to the front rail, and that just literally slides in place. The tolerances are fairly tight, so you can slide it in place and then attach the screws. And put all of the screws in at this time. I recommend putting the screws in loose to begin with. Once you have all of the screws in, then tighten them all up. And that includes the stepper motor itself. Go back and double check and make sure that the 4 screws on the stepper motor is tight as well. It's time now to add the gantry. These 2 end caps must be working independent of each other, meaning the shaft on the front is not secured yet. They must operate independently. So I'm going to secure the gantry to these end caps. To get this square to the rails, pull this all the way to the end. That way you know that it's square to the rest of the machine. Once that is done, then you can come and tighten the screws up front on this shaft with the stepper motor. Now it's time to install the cable. You put the 3 connectors into the motherboard. They're color coded, so that's easy enough. Once that's done, I'm using a zip tie to secure this cable to this extension rail. Next, let's just put the laser on. We'll drop that in place and tighten it, and I'll do the same thing. We'll attach the cable to the laser head itself and secure it. You have two cables left to be able to plug in. One will go right there onto the stepper motor, and the other one will go right up here to this limit switch. You can get that plugged in, and then we'll use the zip ties to secure the cable along this gantry. Of course, when you're all done, don't forget to come back and cut all the tails off. They will definitely get in your way. Don't forget to put this on, because this will help hold the cable up and out of the way and not drop down onto your work area. I actually like this. Okay, now that the machine is finished, we need to be able to adjust the belts and make sure that they are the correct tension. And there's a lot of discussion out there on how tight is too tight. And I've even had people ask me, well, listen, I've broken 3 or 4 belts. What's happening? Why? Well, the reason being is if they're breaking belts that often, they're too tight. Or they're binding or getting caught on something. But usually they're just too tight. I've had other videos that I've actually watched and they say, well, you need to have it about this tight, maybe a little bit looser. There was no definitive answer. Well, today, here's the definitive answer. What I want you to do is be able to raise up the rear of the machine about a 30-40 degree angle. If that gantry doesn't move, the belts are too tight. If it moves real fast and you have to put it down quickly, the belts are too loose. You want a slow movement of the gantry to the front of the machine. If it's moving slowly, the belts are adjusted just right. Very simple, very easy, and it's going to solve this age-old problem that everybody's been having about how tight should the belts be. Now all I'm going to do is raise this up about a 30-40 degree angle and watch. And it's slowly moving forward. That is perfect. That's what you want to have happen. So these belts are adjusted properly. Now the size of this on the x-axis is going to be 430. And I can just leave this at 400, that's fine, but on the y-axis I want this to be at the 920. So I'll hit next. The origin is going to be the rear and left. And auto home will have that turned off. I don't need that on. So we'll leave that off. And I'll hit next. And now I have the summary XTool D1 extension 400 by 920. Origin at the rear left. And click finish. So at this point, I can hit OK. So this is the new area now that I have to be able to design in on the D1 extension. At this point, it's time to test it out to see how this moves through the new space that it has available. And this is fantastic. I can't wait to start doing my first engravings. I've got several large projects in mind already, and I look forward to getting those done. So if you enjoyed this video today, please give me a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe, and I look forward to seeing you again real soon. So for now, bye-bye.